Welcome everyone to Nerd of the Rings. Today we're switching things up a little bit, taking a break from our regular lore to discuss one of my favorite methods of adapting Middle-earth, and that is on the tabletop. Last weekend I attended Gen Con, and if you're not familiar with Gen Con, it is the largest tabletop gaming convention in North America. And while I was there, I kept my eyes peeled for anything related to Middle-earth I could find, so I could give you guys this report from Gen Con. Now, I'll kind of sort of do this in release order. So the first thing we have up is the One Ring RPG expansion, Moria Through the Doors of Durin. Now, this is actually my Kickstarter copy, but they did have copies on hand at Gen Con that they were selling, so I got an early glimpse before mine came in the mail. And I gotta say, one of the first things that I noticed, the thing that I absolutely love, as you can imagine, is this huge map of Moria, this fold-out map of Moria that comes with the game. And what I think is really cool about this map in particular is that not only do we get the traditional bird's eye view that you would expect on a map, but because this is Khazad-dûm and it has multiple layers, many layers, we also get this vertical side view of Khazad-dûm so we can see all the levels of the Dwarven city. And then on the backside we get this combat diagram, which is really helpful if you're, newish to the game. It kind of walks you through how to go through a round of the One Ring RPG. And just like Free League's other expansions here recently, they also have a 5e edition if you are partial to that. This one called Moria Shadow of Khazad-dûm, and I just love this Balrog. It's a very humanoid Balrog, which is different. I have always enjoyed the humanoid Balrog renditions. And that leads me to another one of the things that I really love about these books is the artwork. There's a lot of both color and sepia artwork in these books, and they're just fantastic pieces. And I just happened to open to this page, and it has this wonderful timeline of everything that happens from the first age through the third in the Dwarven realm of Moria. I have to say, even if you're not huge into tabletop RPGs, I don't get to play them as much as I would like, but I love, if nothing else, looking through the artwork in these books. These are really well put together books. Now, speaking of amazing artwork in gaming, you'd be hard-pressed to have better bragging rights than John Howe illustrating your game. Another mainstay in the Middle-earth gaming space since 2004 has been The War of the Ring. This game sure seems to still be going strong, and I noticed that their Gen Con events of the latest expansion were fully booked well before the convention. Their most recent offering is an expansion to the card game version of The War of the Ring, Fire and Swords. This expansion adds new battlegrounds revolving around the war in the north, so you'll find locations like Erebor, the Grey Havens, and the Shire, and use armies and characters like Rune, Dunland, Dane Ironfoot, and Círdan the Shipwright. Now turning our attention to games that have not come out yet, we have Duel for Middle-earth. For those unfamiliar, Duel is originally a two-player version of the game Seven Wonders. Now, I haven't played Duel before, but Seven Wonders is a big favorite here in the Nerd House. So what we have here is a Middle-earth version of that two-player Duel game. According to the game description on various gaming sites, you'll play as the Fellowship, prevent the enemy from gaining ground, and destroy the One Ring. Or, on the flip side, you'll play as Sauron and send your Nazguls after Sam and Frodo. Now, real quick, I have to say Nazgul is both singular and plural, but I guess I'll give them a pass on this one. And as Sauron, you spread your hordes over enemy cities. Now, this game is expected sometime this fall, and they actually had a couple demo tables out on the convention floor, but it was busy every single time that I walked by it, so I actually didn't get a chance to play this game. But being a big fan of Seven Wonders, I'm definitely curious to check this one out. Now, as I was walking around the Gen Con exhibit hall, my brother at one time taps me on the shoulder to point out something I had totally missed, which was a massive poster for a new Lord of the Rings game that I had no idea existed, so that's what I get for checking my email in the middle of walking around. The game is The Lord of the Rings: The Confrontation, and I only discovered after the fact that this is actually a relaunch of a game originally published in 2005. It's been out of print for some time, but I got a lot of comments on my Instagram post of people who still own that original game and spoke pretty highly of it. They currently have a page up for the game on GameFound, which is a gaming crowdfunding platform, which promises an ultimate edition of the game that, quote, may be the most amazing Lord of the Rings gaming artifact that the world has ever seen. Which seems like a pretty bold claim. Like, I'm kind of expecting this to be made of actual mithril. But let me know in the comments if you've heard of this game, if you've played it, and what you think about it. I'm really curious to hear more about this game that totally flew under my radar. Next up, we have what is always one of my favorite booths to check out, and that is Warhammer. I've really enjoyed painting Space Marines recently, and when I found out that the Space Wolves are Norse inspired, that just spoke directly to my nerd brain and seemed like a path that I wanted to go down. But obviously my first love is Middle-earth, which means Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game. Now earlier this year, Games Workshop re-released their Quest to Mount Doom board game. Then a bit later on, they offered a new batch of made-to-order miniatures focusing on the Rohirrim. But in the same blog post, Rob mentioned that they had more in store for 2024 when it came to Middle-earth. And with the clock ticking on 2024, I would think we'd probably be hearing something pretty soon. That is some fortuitous timing. Almost finished with your video and then news breaks. That's right, the aforementioned news about Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game dropped, and it is pretty big. First up, there's a brand new Rise of Angmar supplement, with a group of new minis coming from the Witch King's capital of Carn Dûm. These will go along with the previously glimpsed Knights of Arnor and Gondorian King Eärnur, so you can play out the fateful wars between Angmar and Arnor. But that's just the start. There is a whole new edition of Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game being released, which means we're getting refreshed and updated rules for the game and its armies. Presumably this will also mean the release of a new box set like the previously released Battle of Pelennor Fields and Battle of Osgiliath. Now, if you're unfamiliar with these box sets, they have two well-balanced armies, one good, one evil, and basically all that you need to get started playing the game. So they kind of make a nice on-ramp for new players. As for what this new set could focus on, there's no real solid indication yet. Though I did notice the Warhammer article does mention this coming 6 years after the Pelennor Field set, and that the new edition is galloping towards us. So perhaps this will be a return to the Rohirrim, or maybe they're just alluding to that Pelennor set. But that theme would work quite well with the final bombshell of the article, where it's been revealed that Games Workshop has been working on a tie-in with the upcoming animated film, The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. And mere minutes after this reveal, one of the screenwriters of the film, Artie Papagiorgio, posted pictures of his own visit to Warhammer World in Nottingham. Personally, I'm really curious to see what the team cooked up for this one. I'm guessing we'll get new miniatures for any previously released characters like Helm Hammerhand, but I'm really curious to see what the design is like for these characters. Obviously, the film is anime, which has a style of its own, but then the film is also based on the aesthetic of the Peter Jackson films, which Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game is as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they mesh that out and balance those aesthetics. So there you go, breaking news segment done. Needless to say, I am pumped for more Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game. It's a game that I've really come to enjoy. I find it very relaxing to paint the miniatures, and I hope to do some really fun content here on the channel in the future around this game. Now back to our original video, already in progress. One last note on Warhammer, I will also mention they put on my family's favorite event at Gen Con. They had this hangout and hobby where you got a built Space Marine that you got to paint right there live and then take home with you. This was my kids' first experience painting their own minis, and I think they're kind of hooked on it. They're already asking when we can paint some more of our own and how to play the game. And even if you were there and didn't have the dad angle on this like me, it's a great break in the day to decompress from the hustle and bustle of the con. And I think I've made a little bit of progress in my skill level. Not a lot, but a little. Now, there were a couple other things at Gen Con that we just absolutely loved during our time there, and I couldn't help but nerd out on those a little bit as well. First up, we played some Star Wars Unlimited, which has become a new favorite trading card game in our family. During Gen Con, they announced their third set, Twilight of the Republic, seeming to focus on the Clone Wars period coming on November 8th. They also announced the next 3 set releases, which will span across 2025. Jump to Lightspeed, Legends of the Force, and Secrets of Power. And finally, we have a game that won a Best of Gen Con award in the Stormlight RPG. And this is not the book. This is just like a preview magazine, but it's all I have for visuals. So there it is, Chasm Fiend. Now, for those who might not follow me over on Instagram, I started in June going through the books of Brandon Sanderson and his Cosmere, and I started with the Mistborn trilogy, really liked that, and went over, did some Way of Kings, and so when I found out that they were making a Stormlight RPG, I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I should definitely go check that out. So I went to their panel and they talked about making this game canon and how everything about it is canon and has been consulted on with Brandon Sanderson. Even the artwork, like all the artwork is completely canon. Hand motions, everything. The attention to detail is really admirable. Speaking of detail, the fact that I have a small book in this stack of big books is gonna drive some of you crazy, and I apologize for that. And because I'm not fully caught up with all of the books in the Cosmere, I had that wonderful experience of sitting in a panel and there were jokes and you just kind of nod along like, yeah, we're laughing at something. But then once in a while, I would get one.
I understood that reference.
But in true Sanderson fashion, when the Kickstarter launched immediately after Gen Con, it was revealed that it was not just a Stormlight RPG, but a full-on Cosmere RPG. So it's spanning across all the worlds in the Cosmere. And after mere hours, it was shattering its goal and now stands at well over $5 million. Now, in my short time in the Sander fandom, I gotta say I've been really impressed with Dragonsteel, his company. It's obvious that there's a lot of care in the things that they do and the products they make, and they have a lot of care toward the fans, which is really cool. It's just been a really neat fandom to hop into. This is definitely one I'll be keeping my eye on. Now, I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with the Cosmere per se. I mean, 3,500 pages in 2 months, that's pretty standard stuff, right? Now, tabletop and board games, there's sure to be an area that we're gonna see Middle-earth represented for some time. There's some truly great games that have had amazing staying power over the past 20 plus years, and we're already seeing interesting new ones pop up. Now, if you're interested in seeing more gaming content here on Nerd of the Rings, let me know what you'd like to see in the comments. Obviously, this is just a sampling of the astounding number of games that they have every year at Gen Con. It's kind of wild to me how many new games there are every single year, and I have no idea how people know about these and keep them all straight and know which ones to be excited for. So if there's a board game that you picked up or you heard about or that you're excited about, let me know about that in the comments as well. And if I missed something in the realm of Middle-earth, let me know that as well, because ever since Confrontation kind of took me off guard, I've been second guessing myself a little bit. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.